Hey,
Hi, Kish. How's it going?
it's good, good. Cloudy in London. Live from London.
Okay, awesome. I think that's also created a bit of blocking on your video, but it's not too much of a problem. Um, yeah, right here, right now, Comic Con Africa has been going quite well. We got some really good show numbers, and the traction is incredible. The fans are engaging very well. So, Lulu, do we have anyone else backstage from the advisory team? Okay. So it seems that Kish will be joining us first, and then I'm sure we'll get a few more advices on as we kind of join in. Unfortunately, Kevin, Douglas, and Barry won't be able to join us. They've got separate things to deal with. But I think Kish and I can kind of handle a few issues or a few things that we picked up during the Business of Gaming Forum, a few opportunities that we can kind of talk through. I think it would be a good idea to just also kind of introduce Kish. Kish is a diversity advisor on the diversity and
BAME in games, so Black, Asian, minority, ethnic in video games.
yeah, yeah, BAME Games, and he's also the CTO of Terra Virtua. He did a lot of work with PlayStation in terms of the PS4 and had some amazing stories to tell about those days, but also a few kind of odd stories or kind of awkward situations that happened pertaining to diversity and kind of how he handled that. Um, so, Kish, just as a general question, what would you say, from the survey, what would you say is one of the kind of untapped opportunities in the African market?
So when we did the survey and generally listening to all the talks, so I think one thing I want to share, which should be obvious, is in terms of funding. Some of the talks were issues with funding or so, especially with indie developers. That problem is universal, or international. Let's not go out to the universe yet. Yes, every indie developer struggles, be it in London, Europe, US. So don't feel that this is a big issue because you happen to be in a continent where it's not gaming is not predominantly sort of a great pastime as such. I think it is, by the way, on mobile phones. So that things first. In terms of what you feel, I think the biggest opportunity is one, and then it's such an easy. There's so much potential talent out there, which is the majority of the population who are right now the minority in the video games industry, and I I can tell you for certain, it is not that the industry is not welcoming. It's a lot to do with the parents, mentors, teachers, media perception that video games is not a real job. And we are still in the Europe, when I say we, and US or so, we're still trying to advocate that this is a serious business. I mentioned this yesterday, I mentioned it again, I think I mentioned as well in my panel as well. But video games industry in Europe and US is bigger than film, TV, and music, film, TV, and music combined. Now, if we just pause there and think about that, music, especially film, yes, you can think of could be maybe that is serious amount of revenue. A lot of that bulk revenue is microtransactions, people playing Candy Crush or Pokemon Go's or whatever else. So this is a serious business. So bringing that message across to people who want to work in this industry, but then be able to easily tell their mentors, their parents, their guardians. Teachers are incredibly important. I mean, even at university or so, your teacher will just say, right, you are crazy smart at mathematics, physics, etc. No, you're going to go into astrophysics or whatever, if there's an industry out there. But you could work in the video games industry and enjoy what you're doing, and that's a struggle in Europe. But I think this is a great opportunity of, especially the majority who happen to be the ethnic majority but minority in the industry, get in there. Now, just linked to that, and I'm going to add, which is the other big opportunity which I saw consistently. What's lacking is local stories, local contents. I, I was born in Kenya. There's so much of African folklores and tales which you
Yeah.
can actually say stories of. This is amazing content out there, which the world right now is thirsty for different content. Because yes, there's no way you're going to compete against, or and you don't want to against the Grand Theft Autos or the blockbusters, the FIFAs, and the Call of Duties or so. But what you can, especially with indie developers, is content which is unique. People love stories, adventures which are so unique. And Africa, just in general, is so rich with content of that, which is completely untapped.
Yeah, I completely echo those statements. I mean, the stories that we have in Africa have been told for thousands of years, but yet haven't made it into video games. And Lulu, I've popped a link into the chat, and I was wondering if you could just bring it up after I mention this. It's a link to our Project Springbok itch.io page, where we've actually gathered around 10 local African games from across the continent. And we've got a fantastic roster, and these are all developed by Africans. We've got Ambi, who's developed by Estelle Makoba from South Africa. We've got Kamza Run, which is developed by one of the speakers, Aram Tawia. We've got Doba Dash, which is a really awesome concept. It's so here in South Africa, Kish, we've got people who are like professional recyclers, and
And
yeah, so and basically they ride around on carts and pick up trash, and then at the end of the day, they sell the trash to the recycling companies. So Doba Dash is a game. They've turned it into a race game, and you can build weapons and parts for your cart. It's really awesome. Sunjata over there is a fantastic. Touted as a kind of like triple A quality African game. It's made by Ronald. It's fantastic that we have the demo about 6 months before its official release in Q1 next year. Orion is also another fantastic game. The developers are based in, I think, Sierra Leone, and it's quite a cool story game. It's very like
yeah,
anime heavy, and I it's also a comic book, so excuse me. It's just fantastic. Mzito is from your home country of Kenya. Also, again, telling local and African stories. Snactic, the developer Vedanth, is based here in South Africa. Zack 2 is also quite a cool game. I think the developers are Ife from Nigeria, Smart Olive Studios. Settler is also another recycling game, which is quite cool. It looks like African games are trying to, um, you know, look at society's issues, because here in Africa, it's not really a quiet issue or an under the carpet issue. It's very visible, poverty and access to infrastructure. And these are the kind of games we're seeing. So it's also around the people who collect trash and recycle, and it's just a different angle on it. And then we've got Afro Warriors Battle for Power, which is awesome mobile game, kind of like a Street Fighter, but using African characters and African stories. So everybody, please check it out. I definitely recommend playing all the games on the Project Springbok itch.io page. We're going to keep this page up for the entirety of Comic Con and for the entirety of the year until 2021. So people will be able to download and play these games throughout and experience local African content. Yeah,
this is brilliant as well. By the way, yeah, I saw some of the presentations of the games. They look amazing. They're as good as all the games you see out there. I think, and this gives me a good sort of time to cover. And somebody else mentioned this: having local publishers believing in this and helping, because publishers and distributors, even if it's e-distributors, the PR marketing which goes behind that. So I remember when I was at Sony, a lot of indie developers used to come along and say, we don't need a publisher because Sony is going to publish the game for us on their platform. And it doesn't work. You can't just remove this important part of the business. And I remember over the business side, Tim used to say a golden rule is whatever the budget you spend in the game, that's the same budget then you spend in PR and marketing it. And that's what the important role a publisher, a distributor plays. So don't remove them. Yes, in the digital world, that's probably going to be half the cost of your development. And so I feel this is where great opportunity for, and I'm so glad this Project Springbok, I think they're taken off like a publisher role. More of such people coming along and then exposing it to the world. I think I think they're doing a great job locally. But these are some fantastic content which I wouldn't have heard of if I wasn't part of the Business for Gaming Advisory Board. So thanks to you on this, exposing this out.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. And, we're not really looking to take the role of publisher or distributor, but what we're doing with Project Springbok is we're providing a test market. So what's fantastic about itch.io as a like publishing or distributing platform is that it's got an extensive dashboard, and we're taking that analytics for the traffic that we get over the weekend, kind of share it with developers to share the feedback. Because that's something I learned from Jeff Pobbs when recording his session is, a lot of the things that, fans kind of turned off, or, places where they didn't like something small and then didn't like the whole game. If you know what that is in a test market and can tweak or alter to
Absolutely.
perfect the game. So yeah, that's what we're doing with Project Springbok.
That's
Great.
fantastic. Remind me, I know most of the demos I saw were on PC. Are generally on PCs? Is there any mobile games out there?
Yes, there's actually two mobile games on Project Springbok. However, the funny thing about game development here in Africa is that a lot of the developers are developing titles that are more PC focused, and to be honest, I think that should change. That should change drastically. If you do want to make a game, still make it for PC, still make it for console, definitely. But then also think, how can you bring a version of that game to mobile? So Kish,
So I
what are
will
your
probably
thoughts?
just yeah. I will say don't slightly sort of contradicting what you just said. Don't think of bringing it onto mobile or a version of. I think mobile, as you'll see, because it's so well established, you will need to design a game from ground up. So bring the IP to the mobile, which is probably what you
Okay.
meant by a version. But I think
Mm.
getting it, unfortunately, there's no shortcuts of right, do a PC game and just drop it on mobile and hope for the best. What you will, and there's so much of amazing content out there which could be just mobile only, and it works really, really well. But the only reason I mentioned that is install base wise. I think right now in Africa, but we know in Europe is the fact, and US, mobile is a bigger games platform in everybody's home. Not everybody has games ready PCs anymore, or not everybody has games consoles as such. But mobile, I think it's going to definitely take off. So it's worth thinking. It's not something you want to do sort of overnight and just shift entirely all your development onto mobile. But I think this is what in Africa it's coming along, and mobile will take over just because it's a games console in your hand, in your pocket all the time.
Yeah, right here.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
and yeah, and so that's great. I just like that. And by the way, it's exactly the same with indie developers in Europe. For a fact, it might be in the US, but majority of the indie developers focus on PC. Steam is a good platform to get things out there. PC is such a very easy platform to develop on, and with mobile, yes, it was very easy for me to say it's a big install base, and very easy for us to say that. But having the barriers of the App Store and the Android, and getting exposure out there, especially when you're going to be competing against the top tens of the Candy Crushes and the Pokemon Go's and Clash of Clans and everything else out there on mobile, the exposure is far actually challenging than it is, say, on PC, where you can easily market. And although, yes, you wouldn't be on the top 10 or so to start off with. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is quite a healthy. The good bit is it's great opportunity and new people coming in. There's so much more potential. That's where I see this as opposed to, right, it's a fixed deal. You only aim for this one platform and go for it.
Yeah, I mean, and it actually came out in Dan Levitt's presentation yesterday on, influencer management. So I kind of asked the question because he mentioned that something went wrong with the community, between the community and the influencer. So I kind of asked the question, okay, so what did go wrong and how did you fix it between all of them, or all the parties involved? And it came out that the audience didn't back or believe what the influencer was saying when the influencer was saying that mobile gaming will take over or take on the market in the next 5 years. Um, I've definitely noticed a growth in mobile gaming. The Asian market is completely just mobile crazy at the moment. Or would you kind of what are your thoughts on other markets with regards to mobile? How is the Asian market doing? I know you briefly went over Europe and America.
So I'm not quite certain about Asian, but then Asia is such a massive, big continent. You cannot compare anything with South Korea, which is pretty much a gaming heaven as such, digitally connected, well connected, mobile, PCs, consoles, everything. Maybe not as much consoles as such. And then China is a completely different world as well. Japan, again, completely another world. So I'm not really, I think I probably don't feel comfortable being qualified to talk about Asia and comment because it's such a massive, massive continent as such. But when it comes into Europe as well, or so in terms of mobile, and I think what was hinted or actually mentioned in a couple of other talks is once streaming comes along, yeah, that's where things will change. So I will actually correct myself and actually stand corrected because I think PC gaming, when you look at streaming, you can port a game without having to port it because somebody will be playing that game on a mobile because it's streaming along.
Mm.
So yes, that world is changing along, and that's exciting. That's such a great opportunity, and it's not like a distant future or anything. Especially when sometimes certain platform takes a while to establish in Africa or so. But I think streaming platforms, Stadia is jumped on there, Amazon's announced theirs, Nvidia's working on, but all these players are coming along, and you don't even need a hardware to run it. All you need is one of this device.
Yeah, I mean it's now what we are seeing. I think in all industries is that it's all about choice. It's very much a choice economy, and Netflix came out and changed the game a couple years ago, literally just by putting films and TV series up online for people to choose what they want to watch and watch it from the freedom of their homes. No need to go into a DVD store anymore. And we're seeing a lot of leapfrogging and rapid change, like what was mentioned in a few other sessions. What would you say would be kind of like, but yeah, I think you might say streaming, but I don't want to put the words in your mouth. But what would be Africa's leapfrog technology in gaming, in your
Uh,
mind?
so again, very difficult, and I don't want to pretend I understand Africa fully because to answer that question, you have to then claim you understand that interest. But to me, again, streaming, the reason why is you've got especially a mobile platform, which again I do apologize if because I left Kenya 30 years ago. Electricity would be switched off randomly or so, and you can't play your PC or games console. Maybe if it's on a laptop, great. But
Yeah,
if it's a mobile, it's pre-charged, it's charged, it's designed to run without electricity because it buffers electricity when there is electricity. So that gives you that freedom. So I'm just talking about battery charging in glamorous terms, basically. So yeah, to me, having a platform which is always available and not having these other factors, which unfortunately happens all the time, is a key. So that's why I'm very pro that mobile. It's going to be mobile gaming as well with streaming for that matter. It's the exciting Africa opportunity as such. I don't know. Please educate me. Is electricity and things like that still? Yeah. Okay.
so I haven't been to Kenya in about a year or two, but I would say that infrastructure in Kenya has improved a lot, specifically Kenya. So internet penetration is crazy high in Kenya, Kish. It's like 85%. It's higher than the US that people here have internet. And
Yeah.
it's Kenya as a country, Kenya and Rwanda are actually on our continent looked at as being the growth markets to look at. Um, so, I mean, streaming would work fantastically in Kenya. But now, the one issue we have in the African market is that everybody tends to look at us as the African market. Um, but unfortunately, we're not the US. And even in the US, each state is different. So
Yeah.
we're kind of similar to that. So streaming would work perfectly fine in Kenya, and the gamers would go crazy and love it in that market. But then in places like Nigeria or places like Zimbabwe, actually specifically Zimbabwe, where I've heard the speeds kind of max out at about 2 megabytes per second,
Yeah.
high quality streaming just won't be possible in those markets. So I think, as you've mentioned, streaming technology does make games more accessible to different devices, and it's fantastic. But I think what needs to happen to enable that is that the telcos need to take charge, and they need to ensure that there's more of a spread of the connectivity, and
So
then this market will take off because we've
uh,
got the population, the youth population.
yeah.
If we have the infrastructure as well, we'll have the market.
Yeah, and that's the thing. 5G again coming along. The key advantage in places like Africa, or I mean for South Africa, and I can say for Kenya for certain, is you tend to leap over certain hurdles which in Europe, US they have to. For example, when I left Kenya in 1991, I had a widescreen TV for like five. When I say the family, I didn't own anything. I was a kid, and so I had a widescreen TV, and I came to London, and my cousins had a 3:4 ratio TV. And it's like, oh my God, you don't have widescreen TV. It's like, oh wow, you have one of those. They're not out in Europe quite widely, yes, because they're looking at the kite marks and the safety issues and the broadcasting standards, etc. And so sometimes, yes, those things are necessary if you're going on a large scale or so. And but in certain bits where Africa suddenly trails, means it takes advantage of all that infrastructure coming along, probably jumps a generation, but it means it catches up with the very latest generation a lot better than everybody else who has to worry about legacy support and support all the other devices, etc. So sometimes, although it might sound terrible that you've skipped a generation, it's actually an advantage because you just
Yeah.
jump onto 5G. And I think a lot of the red tapes we face in Europe and US or so, in terms of, for example, like the 5G phone mast, etc. And some absolutely, let's not go into the reasonings or so because there are some valid reasons or so. But I'm certain this would be a lot relatively easier in terms of planning permissions and things like that in most countries in Africa, right?
Yeah, so funny you actually went on to that. One of my friends works for quite an interesting company, IT infrastructure company. So they're called Initech, and they build a lot of infrastructure, like internet infrastructure for the telcos. And they've pioneered a new model that a few telcos overseas have apparently started adopting, and that's the build. It's called the build to sell model. So what Anytech does is they'll pay to have everything built and developed in a certain area, but then they own that infrastructure. And then another large telco will come along and say, "Wow, you guys have done a great job of building this infrastructure, and it's in a high value area. Can we buy it from you?" And then it makes a good deal of money for them. It's been a
Yeah.
strong model. So I think a model like that would actually work fantastically in Africa. Um, and it's something that's working very well overseas.
Yeah, I mean, any tech, that's a lot of the tech developments. So that's what they aim for. That let's develop our tech the way we want, and let's just hope Apple, Google, whoever buys us as such, and that has been an agile, fantastic formula, and nothing wrong with that. So I'm glad to hear this actually works in a different level, in different layer, which actually involves physical infrastructures as such. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, look, there's a lot happening in Africa, and I think Africa itself is a leapfrog market because, as you said, we can skip generations, we can put in brand new infrastructure. We've got the youth population. I mean, our population pyramid, looks like this, and I've seen quite a lot of Asian countries or European countries are actually struggling to get young people because the triangle, the population pyramid is like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on, you know, the potential for the latest gaming innovations coming out of Africa? You know, are we sitting on gold in terms of kind of like knowledge, or just kind of, I know you can't really answer that question because there's a lot of factors there, but just kind of from what you've seen and from what you've heard about the African market, do we have what it takes to truly compete in the gaming industry?
Absolutely. I think that the biggest strength which nobody else has and nobody will is the local, and I'll re-emphasize the whole local journeys, the local stories. You've just mentioned about the trash picking or so, and that would be a great game, and all that would need. So the whole idea is. And the concepts are there. It just needs some polishing along and help from, say, somebody who's experienced, some publishers, some other developer who's already got. So pairing developers is actually a very good way to do that. I mean, that's something I would recommend working with, especially with experienced developers. If you can't find them in Africa, go out in Europe, wherever else, and just help pair up with developers who are your mentors as such. So yes, I think the biggest asset is innovation and stories. And keep in mind, what the advantage is, you're starting with a lot of clean sort of ways of thinking. So sometimes a lot of ideas would have been dismissed because it's like, well, it's not quite right yet. And then that's what happens generally in countries who are very, very advanced and living on the cutting edge of things. So some of the amazing ideas which were dismissed takes a while before they're revisited. Whereas in here, it's like, well, what we got to lose? We've got this amazing story. Let's go for it. And before you know it, like, wow, that's such an amazing experience. And yeah, I would love to play a game where you're just collecting trash. I mean, who doesn't like that? I mean, that's, you wouldn't want to do that in real life, or maybe you would, but in a game, it's fantastic. So let me just give you another strange example. So with BAME games, we run a panel with Video Game Studio, and one of the questions I ask everybody is, what part, and this are all ethnic minorities in the video games industry, what part of your life, your journey, would you like to be turned into a video game? And we get some of the most hilarious and amazing ideas, and we just think they're funny, but then it's like somebody just said, wow, that's a fantastic game. So we had this last session where this girl just said, oh, part of my journey, I'm an Asian from India, and one of the big things is arranged marriages. And he said, wouldn't it be cool to have a game about arranged marriage? And to summarize arranged marriage, that literally means you go to the boy's house, or the girl comes to the boy's house, or the boy goes to the girl's house, and you all sit around. There's this awkward silence. There's food on the table, and then some small talk about weather, etc. And they say, one of the parents will probably say, do you want to go for a walk outside and come back, or go and chat while we are all still in here? And that, although it doesn't happen in Europe or so, but I'm pretty certain, I don't relate a lot to India as such, but I'm sure that happens still. But imagine, that'd be a hilarious game, and there'll be some sort of ticking gauge of whether this relation will work or not, or something like that. And that was just an idea which just came up by a simple question. And there were quite a few others, and some other ones, and actually one serious one which came up, which I thought it definitely needs to be a game jam project or so, is make somebody run through a journey of a ethnic minority, make you walk along a street, how it feels in Europe, in London, to be, say, visually black, and how people are staring at you. All the stereotype comes along. Unfortunately, that is still true. It's serious matters or so. I've got a friend who actually in COVID, I met him. We became friends because we play Pokemon Go, and we do it obviously social distance wise. But he said, I just told him I'm going to the forest for a walk. He said, can I join you? And I said, we live in the same area. I've lived 5 years. We don't have a forest. He said, we do. And we walked literally 1 minute, and we came along to, we've got this beautiful forest where there are deers and everything else. So, and he said, oh, I didn't know you could be allowed to go in there because there's a gate. And I said, yes, it's our forest. And because
Wow.
he's black, he felt he was not allowed in there. What terrible! Nobody told him he's not allowed.
Yeah.
He just deduced that. And then when we went in there, said, Kish, this is what I mean. Because look, everybody's going away. People get scared because I'm walking along as a young, he's only 25. It's such an amazing guy. Love it. And we walked along and I could see his journey because I then consider myself having a superpower. I didn't even think that gate was a barrier. I just thought, well, that's a gate. You open a gate, right? And for him, no, gate was a barrier. And so, how about making a game which you go through this journey, which people unfortunately witness because of how societies are? I think that would be
Mhm.
brilliant because I would love to walk in somebody else's shoe. Because again, being a male is a classic example where you go in and super confident. You asked me to be on the advisory board, and I said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's for a good cause. I love Africa. I was born in Africa." But there are certain times when you're a minority, you're a female, you'd say, "Right, am I good enough to be on the advisory board?" And again, that question has suddenly made that person feel insecure about certain things, and I don't even think about that. And so I'd
Yeah.
love to live that life where I feel, oh my God, am I good enough? Because that's what everybody else is thinking. So yes, I think it's such so much meta in there in that game where you could just have to live an episode or a season or something in somebody else's life.
Yeah, I mean, and there's fantastic technologies to kind of enable that. Like having that game in AR or VR. I think VR would be the best for it because then you literally are walking in someone's shoes. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, these are the kinds of concepts that are coming out in African games. It's Africa, surprisingly enough, you know, we get a bit of criticism for a few things, but we're moving towards, like, the people of Africa are moving towards this very conscious mindset. I've noticed that after COVID, people are taking a lot better care of themselves now. People are starting to think a lot more about what they say and what they do. So they're thinking more about society now, um, and they're also thinking about the choices and the decisions that they make. So games like these, this is why we're starting to see a lot of these kind of like social impact games. Also, Estelle, who made the game Ambi last year, had a very cool concept, and it's actually up on her itch.io page. um, I'd have to just double check the name of it, but roughly it's a puzzle game, right? And it takes your social media post and your social media feed and kind of says, all right, this person seems a bit aggressive today, and then would make a puzzle that's a bit more geared to someone who's in that aggressive mindset, or someone like, this person seems very happy today. Or so we're seeing some really interesting concepts. I mean, I haven't seen that technology being used in any other game. I was shocked.
Yeah.
And this last year at Project Springbok. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in
Uh,
the,
do we have Anya's video ready? Would love to see that right now if we can arrange. I think we should be able to do that.
yeah. So I think what we'll do is we'll cut this session. We'll cut the session a bit early. We do have Anya's video ready, and it will be playable soon. Um,
Brilliant.
do you have any last words for the audience?
No, I think this is just great. I think that this is, and I'll echo what you just said. A lot of mindset has changed, maybe in Africa, but in Europe as well, and the world, because of COVID. For example, I mean, just having this virtual conference and it works. It means you can have virtual meetings and it's acceptable now, which otherwise, being in South Africa, wherever, talking to a publisher in the US would have meant spending a lot of money flying out there and not even knowing whether that's going to be successful or not. In terms of, it's a guesswork of whether they like it or not. So world has changed and the perception has changed. So take advantage of that. And yeah, no, so this is. I'm looking forward to hearing more what's going to come out of Africa. Yeah, super excited.
Awesome. So, I mean, those are fantastic words for everyone in the African market. Just a reminder, you will be able to catch the replay of all of these sessions tomorrow and Sunday. So that's fantastic. I'd also like to give one last thanks to our presenting sponsors for the Business of Gaming Forum, the Industrial Development Corporation, or the IDC. Their video, what we will do is we will re-record a session with Bhavanish and publish that next week. So again, huge thank you to the IDC for all the fantastic work they do in terms of funding all kinds of industries. So even if you're not in the gaming industry, but just enjoying the Business of Gaming Forum, now you have some advice for how to fund your projects through the IDC. And what we'll do is we'll put that presentation up and make sure it's fluid for you, so that you can enjoy that and make sure that you have the best IDC proposal possible. Because just from personal experience working with Bhavanish and the IDC team, it seems they're more interested in the long-term growth of a company than making quick returns on projects. But I'm sure it changes from case to case. But they really are there. They really are the development partner for most businesses in South Africa, who are really pushing the marker and innovating and becoming great businesses. And you can't be such a well-established company like they are if you don't do something right. So the IDC, fantastic company. If you're looking for funding, be sure to email Bhavanish and the IDC. We will at the end of the other session that we post at the end of the week, we will ensure that those contact details are shared with everyone. And we'll also kind of share a video link to everyone who's attended the Business of Gaming Forum today to go and check that out. So we've got another 3 minutes until we were planning to load up the video with Anya, but I think we can kind of cut to it now. I'm just going to check in with our technical team. Lulu, are we ready to run? Awesome. Great. So without further ado, here is the much anticipated session on Kickstarter 101 with Anya Combs.